Good afternoon.
Good
Today is
afternoon.
Wednesday, March 26th, 2014. We're here today interviewing Mike Cassady at the courthouse in Quincy, Illinois. I think Mike is 68 years old. Is that correct?
Yes.
And he was born on February 14th, 1946. It's
Yes.
my mother's birthday, by the way.
Oh, really?
Well, she was born a few years earlier than you, but February 14th was hers. And my name is Judy Abbott, and I'll be the interviewer for you today, which
Okay.
let me say I'm very honored that I'm able to do that.
Thank
And
you.
I'm honored that I can be here. Mike, could you state for the recording what war and what branch of service you served in, and what was your rank?
I was in the United States Marine Corps. You want what I got out, or when I went to Vietnam, or
I would just ask you to give us the dates of your service in the Marines.
I was from June of 1964 to June of 1967, and I was a Sergeant E5.
And you said your rank was Sergeant E5. Where did you serve?
Vietnam
Okay.
for 12 months and 23 days, actually.
Now, I know a little bit about that war because my brother fought in it. Where were you in Vietnam?
The best I can tell you is around Da Nang. It'd be east of Da Nang, some miles, but that was the general operating area for us.
Were you stationed at a base?
The Da Nang Air Base when we first got there, and then they moved us out off to. I didn't know where I was. I mean, I was on
You
a
were in
hill.
country?
Yeah, I was.
While you were in Vietnam, did you get immersed in the culture where you were?
Not really. We didn't have any time to do that. I didn't have. I was always with my unit. I mean, I only went into the Da Nang city once, and that was just for an afternoon. Otherwise, we were, kept out, and they'd bring us back to the air base for a while, and then they'd send us back out. So,
Did you have much contact with any of the indigenous locals?
when we would search their villages, we did.
Yeah.
When we would come into a village, you'd have some contact with them, but I didn't understand their language.
Did you learn any Vietnamese while you were there?
Some, but it can't be repeated.
I get you. I know. While you were in Vietnam, did you bring back anything to share with your friends or your family?
Oh, I sent my mother some. I think they call it a bow dye. It's kind of you know where I'm going. It's like a pants,
Yes.
silk, and then a long top.
A long dress
Right.
with
That
frog
goes
closures?
over.
Okay.
I sent one of those back, and then I sent my little brother a jacket that was made over there.
No electronics?
Well, I had electronics, but all of those went. Never got any of them back after I was wounded.
When you were in Vietnam, where did you do R&R?
We didn't.
Well, you didn't.
No.
You were only there a year.
Yeah.
So you didn't qualify for R&R?
No. Oh, I mean, they pulled us out once. It took us to Okinawa.
Okay.
For a while, and that was R&R, I guess.
How long were you there in Okinawa on R&R?
Oh, we were. I don't think it would really been called R&R as much as it was regroup and refit, and then train some more, and then go back.
So you weren't resting and relaxing?
No, we were not. I mean, we had a weekend in Liberty, and you could sleep in a clean bunk and that. So
have some
seemed
clean
like
socks.
R&R to me.
Yes. Okay. When you were in Vietnam as a Sergeant E5, what were your job duties?
Well, actually, I was a corporal, a lance corporal at the time, and I was a fire team leader.
Can you tell me a little bit about what a fire team leader did?
You're responsible for 3 other Marines and yourself. One, you have 3 riflemen and an automatic rifleman, and you're part of a squad. Your responsibility is to take care of them and make sure that they're everything squared away and they're fed, you know, and when they go out, you have to make sure they have all their stuff and nothing rattles. And so basically, that's your job, and to watch over them.
Did you have any sort of special training for that job?
Not really. I mean, they train all Marines to do those jobs at some point. I went through Raider School, and
Oh, really?
I went to Guerrilla Warfare School,
Let's talk about Raider School. Where was that?
Okinawa.
Okay. That was on your R&R.
Yes,
And what about, did you say jungle school?
Jungle Warfare
Jungle
School,
warfare. Where was that?
Okinawa.
Okay. So you received that training while you were in country.
I received it in Okinawa, and then
Right.
we were sent to, yes.
Okay. And what did that training consist of?
The Raider School, you would learn how to rappel out of a helicopter, climb cliffs, free climb, rubber boat assault coming from the sea, and you know, then there was just tactics and things like that to raid someplace if you were going to do that. And Guerrilla Warfare School was basically what to look out for. You know, we learned how to set patrol ambushes and things like that.
Did you use this training?
Oh yeah.
You did. So you're glad to have it.
Yes, absolutely.
Did you ever rappel out of a helicopter?
Yes.
Wow.
Not in country, but I did it on,
In training?
yes.
Okay. That's impressive.
Well, there's a big sergeant in the doorway telling you to get out, so you don't have to worry about it. You're going out one way or the other.
So are you telling me I shouldn't be so impressed, right?
Well, I was going. He was going to make me go out whether I wanted to or not, so I went on my own. But yeah.
I'm assuming you saw combat near Da Nang if you were a
Yes.
Marine out in country.
Yes.
Can you tell me about how much combat you saw?
Not. I've been in several firefights and mortar attacks, you know, and ambushes. Not as much as some, and more than others.
Mhm. Probably your fair share, though.
Yeah, it didn't take many times of it to scare you off.
I bet. Probably as much as you wanted to see.
Yeah, I was pretty ready to end it. And I did 2 weeks of, we were a reaction force off of a helicopter carrier. So when Marines out in the field would get into a fight, they would bring us in on helicopters to
And
tip
drop
the
you in?
scale.
Mhm.
Right. And that I didn't like at all.
It's kind of scary.
Because they're already shooting when you get there.
Yeah.
So
There's not much of a tune-up
And
time, is there? No.
that helicopter doesn't have a whole lot of protection on it either.
Now, was there a big sergeant in the door then?
No, I didn't have any problem getting out of that one.
I bet.
The minute it got close enough to the ground. Excuse
Did
me.
your unit have any casualties during your time in
Yes.
country?
Yes.
Can you tell me about that?
Most booby traps. We had some people shot. It was, I don't know how many we had. We had guys, one night, we were all holed up somewhere and they crawled through the wire and thrown hand grenades in on some guys that were inside. And as a matter of fact, when I got to the Great Lakes Hospital, one of them, and that happened early. He was just then getting out of the Great Lakes Naval Hospital.
So he was hit pretty bad.
He was, yes, because they threw their pagodas, and these guys had gone into that pagoda and set it up as a CP kind of.
Command post.
Right, and they crawled through the wire and they'd thrown the hand grenades into that. So you're basically in a little concrete box when that went off. So they're probably lucky they're alive at all. I mean, really.
Now, Great Lakes Naval Hospital, that's north of Chicago, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
just wanted to make that.
Waukegan.
I know where
Yep.
that is, so
Yep.
just wanted to make it
Yeah.
clear for the record. Did you lose any men?
No, none ever killed.
Wow,
No.
okay. I see from your fact sheet that you were wounded.
Mm-hmm.
You received a Purple Heart.
Mm-hmm.
And can you tell me about that?
It was a mine went off and I was hit in the abdomen. It wasn't. That's what that says. It's gunshot wound to the abdomen, but it wasn't. It was a mine. Shrapnel. And because I remember when the helicopter, when I was laying in the down and the guys were kind of hovered over me and they were saying, "You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay." And I was laying and the helicopter was coming to pick me up and take me to the hospital or the MASH unit. And they kept trying to cover my head up with a poncho because of dust.
Oh, I see.
See, they were kept trying to cover my head up, and I didn't want them covering my head up because I didn't want anything over my face, you know. And so they picked me up, put me on a helicopter, and away I went.
You know, things were very different in the Vietnam conflict in terms of medevacing people out, weren't they?
Yes. My doctor, I have a doctor in Hannibal that came up. He was a naval officer, he was a reserve naval officer, but he did his duties in the Great Lakes. Well, when he found out I was there, he came by and saw me. He was a commander. And he told me in his course that during the Second World War, I wouldn't have made it.
I was just going to say.
Because I was hit in the abdomen and it went through my intestines. And I think they took 1.5 feet of my large intestine, and I had 11 holes in my small intestine. But the thing is that would have leaked out into my system, and
you'd have gone septic.
Right, and and if I'd had to, well, I mean, probably if I'd had to, they couldn't have got me out fast enough. That would have happened. So anyway, I was very lucky.
It appears you were never a prisoner of war.
No.
Were any of your men taken or captured as prisoners of war?
No.
Did you know anybody that was a prisoner of war?
No. There was nobody I ever knew, because we knew if they ever caught us, Marines didn't fare very well.
They didn't, did they?
No.
And why was that?
I don't know, but they didn't, you probably wouldn't survive if they caught you. So, it was kind of a case of if you had to fight, you were going to fight it out,
Fight until the end.
Yeah.
I'm sure you were awarded a Purple Heart. And do you still have that?
Actually, no. It's not, can't find it.
Oh, yeah. My dad just passed and we were looking for a lot of his medals. And
I had those and I don't have them anymore. So I don't know. They got lost somewhere in a move.
Yes, I know how that goes. Did you receive anything other than a Purple Heart?
Well, other than the standard things, I didn't receive any awards. I received good conduct, Vietnam service, presidential unit citation.
Can you tell me about that unit citation?
It was
a pretty cool deal.
It was given to the 1st Marine Division, at that time I was in the 1st Marine Division, so everybody got it. I don't know. I read the thing about it. It was for some operation that, to be quite honest with you, I don't think I was even involved in. I was somewhere else.
But everyone got it.
But it was the unit, the Marine Division.
So you had bars, right?
I'm sorry.
You had bars for your uniform, all these citations. Do you still have those?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I think I still have that green uniform, though, that you got that picture of. That might
Did you
come
bring
right about here.
Did you bring a picture? Or had you sent a picture in? Oh, can I see it? I'd love to see it. I sent a
This
picture
was
in
out
too.
of boot camp. So
Where did you do your boot camp?
uh, I was in San Diego.
Okay. Oh, wow. What's the cross?
That's right, a sharpshooter.
Oh,
It's for,
can you tell me about that?
well, you qualify at boot camp for, there are three: expert, sharpshooter, and marksman. And I had the sharpshooter.
Did that help you out while you were in country?
uh, yeah. I mean, every Marine's a rifleman. And that's what they tell you anyway. And if you're a cook, you're still, if they want to, they'll hand you a rifle, and you're supposed to be able to do that. So, I mean, you trained on how to use it, sure.
So you told me that you were stationed in Da Nang and then they would take you out, obviously, out in the jungle, and you would do missions, obviously, wouldn't you? You'd go out on a
We would
mission.
go out and really we go out and wander around and go through villages and just make our presence known. And if we, rice paddies and things like, I mean, we would just make our presence known. And sometimes they were waiting for you when you, um, and I have pictures, and I was showing them to Carolyn that anytime the little kids were around, you knew you were pretty safe. But when you didn't see any women and kids around, you better keep your head up, because they knew more about what was going on than you did. So,
And they were out.
if you didn't see them, you better be careful. Yeah.
So when you were going into villages, were you looking for VC?
Arms, VC,
VC, for the record, is Viet Cong.
right?
And you were looking for weapons?
Weapons, unusual stashes of rice, things like that. That they were supporting the
VC.
Viet Cong.
And did you ever find that kind of thing?
Yeah. We found. We caught them one morning, and we marched all night. I mean, we caught them because they couldn't get away fast enough, so they had to fight. I think we marched in with dawn. We were sitting on this trail waiting to sweep through this village, and they didn't know we were there, and it turned into a pretty good tussle, I guess, fight. But
How did you know they were there?
we really didn't until they started shooting.
Oh.
Well, we'd lined up because we knew that they wanted, as a fire team leader, you know where you're supposed to be, but you don't know the overall picture of what's going on. That we were going to sweep this village through, that there had been reports there were VC and such in there, and they were in there, and we caught them. I mean, they had to fight, because, and so it was touch and go for a while.
Back and forth?
Um,
Were there any villagers caught in the crossfire during that?
I didn't see anybody, and quite frankly, when shooting starts, your whole world centers around an area about the size of this table.
Right. How could you tell VC from the
You
other?
couldn't.
You couldn't, could you?
No,
No.
I mean, you could tell a North Vietnamese regular from the rest
Sure
of them.
you could.
But
An RVN?
because they had a uniform on.
And for the record, what does RVN stand for?
They were NVA.
Oh, excuse me, NVA.
Yeah,
Sorry.
North
Vietnam
Army.
yeah, excuse me.
They were regulars, and they were
Right.
well trained. They were,
Where did they receive all that training?
I assume, back in North Vietnam, because they came down the
They came down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, didn't
right?
they? So That day you said you were a fire team leader and you knew what you needed to do. Did you have a commanding officer with you that day?
Yeah, you had a chain of command. I had I think the captain was the overall company commander, and then the platoons had a lieutenant that was in charge of the platoon, and the squad leader was in charge of my squad, and so on down the line. And
Mhm.
so we were just 4 guys out of 12, out of 36, out of.
Right.
Uh,
Whenever you went out, was it always the chain of command like that?
no, they would separate you out. A lot of times they would send out our platoon somewhere, which made the lieutenant in charge of everything, and he would do. The captain was over with somebody else, but I mean they would put our platoon on one hill and another platoon on this hill, and then they would go out at night and set ambushes and listening posts on trails to see if anybody's using them,
Mhm.
and but yeah, that was basically it.
How did you feel about your chain of command? Did you feel that they were well trained or that
Oh
they were
yeah,
reliable?
yeah, yeah. The sergeants were all well trained. The lieutenant, I didn't spend a whole lot of time around him. He was up the CP, and I got my orders from the squad leader, and the squad leader got his orders from the platoon sergeant, and so on down the line.
It rolls downhill, doesn't
Yes,
it?
it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah. So did you feel that the times that you would engage in these battles, that they were planned pretty well?
Oh, and not well. I don't think so. I mean, I think they were haphazard. You run into them.
Kind of random.
Nobody knew where they were. They you try to catch up with them, which, in all honesty, I didn't care whether I caught up with them or not because it was going to be a fight. And at 19 years old, I was uh, concerned about my future. I'll put it that way.
And coming home.
Right.
Mhm.
And but no, you really didn't. You went out an area. You just went out. They said go over to that village and see what's over there. And while you're on your way over there, you might get hit,
So it
or you
doesn't
might
sound
not.
so it doesn't sound like there was a whole lot of planning. You knew maybe where you were going, but
Yeah.
what happened between here and there, you just never really knew.
No, you didn't know from day to day what was going to happen. They might be there. They might not.
Was that scary?
It wears on you.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're out in the field, you sleep. You sleep 2 hours every night. You're up 2 hours. Sleep 2 hours from dusk to dawn. Every 2 hours, you're in a foxhole with another guy, and you wake him up, and he stands up for 2 hours, and then you sleep 2 hours, and you do that, and that goes on for a week, or a week or 2 weeks. You don't take baths. You don't. And they fly in, or the helicopter might fly in water for you and sea rations or something, and then
Yum.
fly back out. Yeah, and so you just wear down, from that.
Can you tell me the purpose of the 2 hours on and off?
Well, somebody has to be up. You can't have anybody. You can't go to sleep. I mean, somebody has to be watching. So we would circle up at night, maybe on a hill or on a high ground or something, and then you would every uh, however many there were of us, you would pair up with another guy, and you would stay sleeping. You would sleep 2 hours, but after a while, the heat and the walking and all day, and then you're up and walking all day, and the bugs and the leeches and the
Snakes.
snakes and what have you. It got so we could sleep. If you set us down very long, we could all doze off on you pretty quick.
Did you correspond with people back home, like with your folks? Or?
My mom, my mom, dad, I wrote. My
Mhm.
mom wrote quite a lot, and I wrote her
Yeah.
quite a lot.
That was probably good to get mail, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Did you get any other things from home? Like, did your mom send you like a newspaper or magazines or anything like
Uh,
that?
every once in a while, she would send me a card or a clipping out of the newspaper or something of somebody that I knew and what happened, if something interesting happened. Uh,
When you were out in the field, how did you cope with all of that? Like the sleep deprivation and the bugs and the food, which wasn't good, and thinking, maybe any time, it was going to be it. How did you cope, or did you not think about it?
well, you just do it. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. You can't not, your friends, your buddies are there. You're not going to say, I'm not going to do it. Where are you going to go? You're there. It's not like you can go to the airport, and say, I've had it. So, I mean, and you do it for your friends, basically. And those guys were my friends, and they wouldn't leave, and I wouldn't leave them. And
You wouldn't
so,
leave them behind.
no, that's Marine code. You
Right.
don't leave anybody behind.
Did you talk amongst your friends there about being worried or being scared or being anxious or how badly you were coping with the conditions?
Sometimes, but a lot of it was macho. But
Mhm.
sure, yeah, you talked about it. Especially
A bad fight?
after a fight,
Mhm.
you would talk about it. I remember the first time I went out on a night patrol, and I'd never been out at night before, and that's when they're out.
That's creepy,
And,
isn't it?
and a friend of mine and I were laying there waiting to go and talking about it, being scared.
And after that night patrol, did you talk about it the next day?
Uh, boy, I don't remember whether we did or not. I guess we didn't talk about, like I said, we didn't talk a whole lot about things like that. Uh, fear kind of it's contagious. So yeah, I mean, everybody was scared, and nobody wants to get killed.
But you don't
So
want to give it voice either, do you?
no, we just took care of one another, and the smaller the unit, the tighter the group.
Mhm.
So I didn't know very many guys from like the third platoon. I didn't know. I knew some of them, but just didn't. But our platoon, you knew everybody.
Did you ever keep a diary or a journal or anything while you were there?
No,
Just
they
the
really
letters?
didn't. I don't think the Marine Corps actually really wanted you to do that. They didn't want you to. I don't know that anybody did that I'm aware of because of a lot of guys might have written stuff after the fact, but
Mhm.
I don't think they wanted you to have that kind of stuff on you
In
if
case you were
something
captured,
happened,
right, or killed?
or anything like that. They didn't, you know.
Did you ever write down any of your memories when you came back?
No, no, I really did not. It was kind of an unpopular war to
Oh, I
begin
know,
with, and
I know.
you more or less didn't really want to say too much about it to anybody. I didn't talk about it a lot to.
Can you tell us what your most memorable experience about Vietnam was?
uh, boy, I'm not sure I know. There's a lot of things that stick in my mind. The We ran into a North Vietnamese regular unit that was probably the same size as we were, and they usually, if you had them equal or better, they would take off. But if they have these guys, and they mortared us, and mortar attack is not fun because the rounds come straight down. So it doesn't matter if you're if I'm in a hole as big as this table with another guy and that round, they come down. So like that. So I can remember being hunkered down in that hole with him, and he was from Texas, and we were both about ready to cry because you just didn't know, and
You didn't know if that one had your name on it or
yeah,
not.
right, and if and I can remember laying on the ground and when it first started, and I saw dirt fly up around me. And it dawned on me at that point that somebody had tried to kill me. I mean, they had actually they'd taken a shot at me. So
That was pretty memorable.
yeah, that didn't.
Can you talk about the first glimpse you had of Vietnam?
Yeah, we came in. We were actually the 2nd Battalion of Marines to land in Vietnam. We came in on. It's funny. We all thought we'd watched old John Wayne movies, and we came over the nets. We came down the nets into the boats, and the boats took us into Da Nang Harbor, and the door flops open, and here are these kids selling cokes and all this stuff, and just like we were all prepared to do one of these across the beach things, and we get there, and it was kids selling coke, bottles of soda to us, but then they moved us right on over to the air base, and
It was hot, wasn't it?
always
Hot.
or rainy. When the rainy season came,
Mm-hmm.
it rained and it rained and it rained. Everything was wet. I had when they brought me back to the Great Lakes, I had ringworm on my ankles that big around from never taking your boots off, being wet. At night you wouldn't take them off, and so they had to cure that too when I was there.
Did you have anything that you took with you in terms of maybe like a St. Christopher's medal or any kind of thing that somebody might have given you, your mom might have given you?
Yeah, I had a little card that I carried in my wallet that was, it was got something to do with, I don't know, I can't think of what it was now, but yeah, there was something I carried that my parents had given me. It was a little plastic coated card of some sort.
Was it a prayer card?
It had a prayer on it, but there was something else to it too, and I didn't. I can't tell you what it was. It's been too long ago now, but I did have something like that.
Did you look at it while you were there?
I probably did. I carried it in my wallet, and which usually if you were out, you carried your wallet up under your helmet because you didn't want to get it wet. But I looked at it occasionally, sure.
Were you a praying man?
There are times I was.
In that foxhole with that Texan?
Yes, I was.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the 50s when, everybody thought that you had a misconception of what war was like. And when you get over there and you see somebody with a hole in them and screaming, or you see what artillery rounds can do to a village, or
it's not the same.
It's not the same, or you can smell it. Then all of a sudden you just want to get out of there. You want to survive it and get home.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like you made it out of that foxhole with that Texan.
Yeah, I did.
Do you ever know what happened to him?
Yeah, he got transferred out of a grunt unit, and he got a job in the back at Da Nang at the base, So he got out of the field. I don't know well what happened to him after that. And when I've seen some of the guys. I had always wanted to look up one or two of these guys that I knew from there, but I haven't. And I was looking through the other day, and today I had a letter from a guy that from California that he and I were friends, and he had mailed it to Hannibal High School.
Trying to find you.
He said in the letter, he said, I heard, I got back to the States, I heard James Cassady was wounded, that he'd gotten wounded, and do you know how I can get in touch with him? So, see how he's doing. And then they had mailed that to the high school. Well, I went to a Catholic school there in town, but they had gotten it to us because, small like Hannibal, they knew who we were, and I never did get back with him. I didn't get the chance to get in touch with him, but he lived in California. Yeah.
Now, you said that you'd go out from the base, but then you'd come back because you were stationed at that base in Da Nang.
That's where they'd bring you back. I mean, I was there so in the very kind of beginning of it. As I say, there are a lot worse guys had a lot worse than I did. There's no doubt. But we would go out, and typically you'd be out for 1 or 2 weeks, depending on what went on, and then you would come back, and they'd give you 2 or 3 days to rest, where you could just kind of lay around and sleep and get cleaned up and that. And then after that, they might put you on perimeter watch for a while, and then after that, they would start gearing you up for your next go out.
And this was an air base, you said?
Yeah, it was that's where Da Nang. Yeah, I had written my father the first time when I was in Da Nang. They used to have Marines walk the perimeter of that air base. Well, one night I wasn't on duty. I was in the tent city, we called it, where our company was. And I saw the plane start exploding on the runway. And you could hear bullets going through the tent, popping in that canvas. So everybody got out, and we ran out to the trench line. And what had happened was sappers had come through the wire.
What's a sapper?
The North Vietnamese, he comes in with satchel charges or explosives and throws them under airplanes, and he's running down the airfield, and they just started blowing airplanes up, and we were all in the trench line with our weapons pointed across the field, not knowing we hadn't been there very long either, and I can remember, I don't know how colorful, but my gunnery sergeant those gunnery sergeants are old Marines, and and I can remember looking. I was scared, and I was in this foxhole, and we were all in there looking out across there, and here he was in his underwear with a cartridge belt and a helmet on, and a pistol in his hand, telling us Marines to hold your fire, don't just shoot at anything. And there's kind of been shooting, and he's walking up and down the line. He didn't even get down
in his trap.
Of course he was like herding a lot of kids. We're all 19. Mm-hmm. And
were you drafted, by the way?
No, I joined.
You joined.
Yeah.
What made you join?
I joined, I think, my dad had joined, and
was your dad a Marine?
Yes.
So you came from a Marine family.
I have one son that was a Marine.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you have a long tradition.
Well, and I think too, I was probably I think I'd have been sitting in here if I'd have kept going the way I was going. I might have been sitting in here in front of you, if my life, because I was young, so I went down and I joined up here in Quincy.
So it sounds like it was a turning point for you
Yes,
in
sure.
terms of your life and your
Yeah,
development.
absolutely. I
Sounds
mean,
like even though you went to Vietnam, it was a good thing for you to be a Marine.
it was a good thing. I mean, it was nothing to be. I mean, they train you. You don't even think about some of the things that they train you to do. But I was in the Marines with a lot of guys that came out of Chicago, a lot of inner city kids from Chicago, and some of these kids didn't know how to do anything, and they taught you how to sit, how to eat, what fork went where, how to wear that uniform. I was telling her on the way over, you couldn't have that belt buckle out of line. You couldn't have those Eagle Globe and anchors aimed the wrong way. And I mean, and they taught you everything. And so you
They
learned a lot. I mean, I learned a lot of that anyway. I knew a lot of that, but it was good for a lot of people.
they taught you discipline, didn't they?
Very much so.
And they gave you a structure for your life.
Absolutely.
And they taught you a code
Absolutely.
of honor.
Yes, you didn't, you were, you know, we took care of one another.
Mhm. What I was going to ask you about when you came back to the air base in Da Nang, I grew up during this time, and I remember watching on television Bob Hope going over to Vietnam with his road shows.
He was there.
Did you ever see him?
No, they sent us out.
Oh,
We went out for the perimeter. When those type of people come in, there are a lot of people get to see them, and that's good. But somebody has to be on watch. And
that was you
yeah.
folks?
Now I did see Robert Mitchum. He came over. He flew in a helicopter. He come flying over our hill one day in a helicopter, and kicked out a case of beer.
Oh.
They kind of swooped in, hovered, and he shoved out a case of beer and
What was he
waved at
doing over
everybody.
there?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
He was just over there visiting or whatever he was doing, but he was. I'm trying to think. No, I didn't get to see any of that. No,
You didn't have any entertainment?
no, not really. No.
So once you're wounded, they air vac you out quickly, and then they got you to Great Lakes Naval. Did you
took me to
stop somewhere like in Germany maybe?
I stopped. I went to off the hill to the MASH unit where the where they did the surgery immediately on me to stabilize, and then they took out some of my intestines and they sewed the rest of them up and gave me a colostomy.
Mhm.
And then they shipped me out of there to the Philippines.
Oh, yeah.
So I went from there to the Philippines for a day or two or three, and then they put me on another plane and shipped me to Travis Air Force Base in California, where I stayed a few days because I was stretcher case. So, and then they didn't, they make you go the whole way. And then they took me from there. They flew me to, I guess, probably Chicago Air, and then I went to the Great Lakes Naval Hospital.
Do you remember much about that trip?
I remember it's the first American girl I'd seen in a year.
You were pretty happy.
Nurses,
Yeah.
American nurses on that airplane, yeah. And they put us on there because, and they were very nice girls. I mean, they took good care of us. But yeah, it was.
So your days in Vietnam ended with that?
Yes.
So after you were, how long were you in the hospital at Great Lakes?
I was in the hospital. Well, they had to do another surgery, so I was there for a while, and then I think I was there. I think it was a month, but I'm not. I can't be sure anymore. And then they did a surgery to put the colostomy back.
They reversed that?
Reversed it because, I mean, when I woke up and I also, when I did my surgery, I also told the doctor that did the surgery for me at Da Nang, that anything he got out of me, I wanted it as
Oh,
a
I see.
souvenir. Because I can't tell you what he told me, the Marines were the most souvenir hunting somethings.
Yeah.
But you know what? When I woke up, that shrapnel was taped to my shoulder.
Really?
Yep.
Did you bring home any war souvenirs? My dad brought
No.
home a lot from World War II.
No, my sea bag didn't even catch up with me for quite a while. I mean, I was gone. I didn't get anything out of there, and then they had to issue me uniforms to get by and my sea bag didn't catch up with me till I was in North Carolina. So
Did you also have a Foot Locker?
yeah, we kept everything in a sea bag, and I mean, you'd come in. It was kind of hot bunking. Your platoon would come in to refit, and another one went out. So you'd move into their stuff. So you kept everything
In a bag.
pretty much in that bag. And
Did your folks come up and visit you at
yes,
Great Lakes as soon as you got
yes,
there? They were there.
yes. Because fortunately, like that letter, I had called my mother. They asked me if I wanted to make a phone call when I was in the Philippines, and I assumed it had been a couple of 3 days. I assumed they'd already been notified that I was wounded. And mothers, their mind will run rampant and that said I was shot in the abdomen. And but I didn't know what that at all, but I figured they'd notified them. So I went, called, and I got the phone. Mom answered, and I could tell that she didn't know.
She hadn't gotten
She
this?
hadn't gotten that.
Oh my.
Because I said, "Hi, Mom," and the response was, "Oh, hi, Mike. Where are you? How you doing? Where'd where?" I could tell by the tone of her voice and the lightness of her voice, she was happy and all this and blah blah blah. And I sat right then and I said, "Now, Mom, I've got everything's okay. I just want to tell you I was wounded." Well, then my dad got mad and he called up here to the recruit depot, our place, and he said, "My son just called me from the Philippines that he'd been wounded." And and it wasn't long that showed up on the doorstep. So
they were there when you got to Great Lakes. They came up to visit?
they came up later. They came up on a weekend and spent a day or two with me, and then I got, after I was well enough to travel, a friend of mine came up. He was a corpsman in the Navy. He was on, and we had planned our leave to coincide because we were high school buddies and played football and all that. And anyway, I was so close to the end of my term in Nam when I got wounded that anyway, he came up and got me, and he managed to talk the people at the Great Lakes Naval Hospital. His mother was an RN, and she came along, and they hauled me home, and I got some leave at home for a while. So, and then I went back, but
Where did you go? You went back where?
I came home. I mean,
Yes.
they gave me some colostomy bags, and home I came. And
At that point, were you discharged or were you still in the
no, I
Marines?
went back. After I got out, after I finished surgery, they didn't know what to do with me. So then I was a corporal of the guard at the Great Lakes Naval Prison, or whatever you want to call it. And then I had orders to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and I wound up in the military police there for. See, I was too short to send back. They couldn't have sent me
You were a
back.
short timer, right?
Right. So they offered me, they were going to make me a staff sergeant and give me duty in Naples, embassy duty in Naples if I would re-up.
Italy?
Uh-huh. But I would have been right back in Vietnam in '68, and that would have been about the time of the Tet Offensive.
That was
And
bad.
I don't think I wanted, I've kind of made a good decision on that one, I think, but I didn't re-up.
So when were you discharged?
June 27th of 1967.
And how old were you?
21.
Wow. And did you come back to Quincy?
I came back to Hannibal where my folks
Oh.
lived and stayed there for a while, and then I moved up here, I think, in 69. Got married and moved up here, 1969.
Tell me about coming back to Hannibal after your discharge from the Marines. What was that like?
Well, you just didn't talk about it. You didn't say too much about it. I mean, people knew where I'd been and what I'd done, I mean, where I was, but there was nothing to talk about. I mean, all the anti-war stuff was going on, and everybody had long hair, and, nobody just really didn't want to talk about it.
Did anybody ask you about it?
Well, there were a lot of buddies that were veterans too, that, we would talk amongst ourselves once in a while and tell funny stories, and, I mean, uh, things that happened to you. But as far as,
Like neighbors or friends or family? Did anybody ask you about what it was like? Anybody call you baby killer?
no, I kind of got the idea that nobody really wanted to hear about it, so I never brought it up too much, and I didn't have any real problems with it. Like I said, everybody knew where, in a small town like that, they knew where you had been, and but it was just the attitude, it was like, people didn't care and didn't want to know about it. And
How'd you feel about that?
I didn't like it.
No, I know.
I didn't like it. I mean, my dad went over and served his country, and I went over and served mine, and she's got sons that are serving theirs, and at least, when we go someplace, sometimes you'll see them. They'll pay for him to.
They'll pay for his dinner or they'll buy him a drink, buy him a beer, and that didn't happen to your generation, did it?
No,
Didn't happen for my brother either, so I know.
no.
I know how hard it is.
So
I know how hard it is. Especially you've got a dad who went to World War II and survived that in the Philippines, which there wasn't any tougher service
yeah,
than the Philippines. And certainly when that generation of my dad and your dad came back, huge ticker tape parades and, VE Day, VJ Day, it was very, very different for the
yeah.
men returning from Vietnam.
And
Very different.
at least I'm glad to see that the people today are appreciating these young men for what they do,
Mhm.
because it's takes a lot, like go away
It does.
and leave your family.
Mhm.
Jason's got a wife,
Mhm.
and he spends a year flying around over Iraq. It's
Mhm.
and I've seen some things that he does that his bravery's not in question. It's
Have
he's
you talked to him about his service?
once in a while him and I kind of talk, but
Mhm.
I've seen some of his uh, combat footage from his helicopter, and
Is it similar or is it different?
it's a whole different ball game. I mean, he's sitting up there. And what he flies it's a scout. It's a Kiowa warrior, and they fly in low where you can get at them with small ground fire. But so what he does is
Pretty dangerous,
pretty
isn't
brave.
it?
Yes, it is. It's brave, and he's
Mhm.
and if got to be a special individual to want to be able to do that and get in there every day and do it again.
Sounds like you're pretty proud of him.
I'm proud of all of them.
Mhm.
Proud of Brandon. My other son was a Marine. Fortunately he didn't have any war to
Mhm.
go through, but he spent 4 years in the Marines, and so
It's still service to his country.
absolutely he served his country, and you just do the best you can.
What did you feel was the best part of being a Marine that you brought into your everyday life after you came back?
You learn discipline is one thing. You don't you don't go around looking like a bum. You don't go around if you tell somebody you're going to be there at 11:30, you're there at 11:30. You learn to be punctual. I mean, and those things are things employers look for. Right? Do they want somebody that you know? They tell me that I have a job and it starts at 7 o'clock. I'm there at 7 o'clock or before. So those are all qualities that are instilled. You don't call them and tell the Marines and tell them you're going to be late. Because I remember once I had to go. The airlines went on strike when I was going to Camp Lejeune, and I had to scramble because I jumped on a train and took a train from Hannibal to Washington D.C. and then a bus on into Camp Lejeune, and I had to be there.
Use your duty.
Yeah, well, they don't you don't tell them no. I'm sorry, I missed it. The planes didn't fly. Then they don't accept that.
I think we've come to an end of
Okay,
our time.
great.
I want to thank you so much for coming and doing this. Listening to your experiences was wonderful for me because, as I said, my brother was in country. He could have been at your air base because he was stationed in Da Nang.
Is he Air Force?
Yes, he was.
Yeah,
Air Force.
He might have very well been there.
And it's really a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
So much for your service to our country.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you for coming as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay.